What happens when fire meets ice? When a silent mountain hides a deadly secret? In 1985, Colombia would discover the answer, when Nevado del Ruiz erupted and turned peace into tragedy. High in the Andes stands Nevado del Ruiz, a snow-capped volcano nearly 17,000 feet tall. It's sat about 50 kilometers from the agricultural-rich town Armero, home to about 28,000 residents. The volcano is part of the Andean volcanic arc, formed by subduction of the Nazca Plate beneath the South American Plate, which generates magma that feeds Nevado del Ruiz. On November 13, 1985, the mountain stirred. The eruption itself was modest, small compared to other famous explosions, but it released something far more deadly than ash. Because the heat melted more than 10% of the summit's massive glacier, the ice and ash mixed with the rock, forming lahars, torrents of volcanic mud. Imagine rivers of wet concrete surging at 60 kilometers an hour towards your home. They carved through valleys and grew larger and larger, swallowing stream after stream. They thundered towards Armero. In the valley quietly lay Armero, unprepared for what was coming. Warnings had been issued, but confusion, miscommunication, and disbelief left the town unprepared. Hazard maps had been issued, but not everyone received them. In fact, some residents thought the green zones on the hazard maps were safe zones, but were actually intended to indicate high impact areas of lahars. That night, while most were sleeping, the first lahar reached Armero. Then, within minutes, the town disappeared under a sea of volcanic mud. Nearly 23,000 people were killed, families vanished, thousands were injured, and more than 5,000 homes were destroyed. Survivors carried not just physical scars, but decades of grief and trauma. Armero itself was actually never rebuilt. It remains a ghost town to this day. It cost about 220 million USD in direct losses, and only 25% of the town's population survived, forced to relocate with their trauma afterwards. The tragedy came to life in the story of Omaira Sanchez, a 13-year-old girl trapped in the mud. For 3 days she held on, calm and courageous, while rescue crews fought in vain. Her face was broadcasted worldwide, making her a symbol of both the disaster and the failure to act in time. The lahars didn't just bury towns, they reshaped the land itself. Valleys were scoured, rivers were rerouted, and farms were erased. The eruption linked Earth's systems. Ice melted, water mixed with rock, ecosystems collapsed. A single event rippled through the cryosphere, melting glaciers, the hydrosphere with the lahar flows, the geosphere through the land deformation, and the biosphere through the destruction of vegetation and habitats. Unfortunately, the tragedy was largely avoidable. Warnings existed, but evacuations were not ordered in time due to miscommunication, complacency, and just failure to act. But from devastation came change. The disaster prompted the creation of volcano observatories across Colombia and the adoption of lahar early warning systems and sirens, especially around glaciated volcanoes. A paradigm shift in Colombia and Latin America's disaster management occurred. From reactive response to risk reduction, incorporating early warning systems, hazard mapping, and integrated policy frameworks. Educational programs emerged out of this too. Students and communities were engaged in volcanic hazard awareness, teaching people how to respond proactively. Nevado del Ruiz still stands snow-capped and quiet, but it is not asleep. Its story asks us a question that echoes far beyond Colombia. When the next warning comes, will we listen and will we be prepared?